Want the exact formula to accumulate $1, 10, or even $100 million net worth? Then you're going to love today's episode. We're diving into part 2 of the DecaMillionaire Journey. A DecaMillionaire has accumulated a net worth of $10 million or more. Last week, we dove into part 1, becoming a DecaMillionaire, which included 2 insights focusing in on the inner game and how you can join this elite group. The nuggets we covered last week in part 1 in episode 65 on becoming a DecaMillionaire are critical. And I wanted you to have time to process those so that you can get that dialed in before you begin creating your strategy, regardless of what your goal is. If you haven't listened, I encourage you to go to themillionaireinsider.com/65 because part 1 is absolutely critical and it'll be very helpful in implementing what we dive into today. Today, we're going to explore 2 more tactical insights, and I'm going to teach you the exact formula, including the numbers I used on my journey. So if you want to fast forward to your financial goals, stay tuned because today's episode is going to show you that and more. Hi, I'm Annette Bau, host of the Wealth Inside and Out podcast and founder of the Millionaire Insider. My mission is to help you simplify the money game so you can create a financially secure and fulfilled life without having to have a PhD or spend countless hours on your finances. You're going to learn how to think like a millionaire, stop worrying about money and wondering if your financial house is truly in order, and instead spend your time doing what you love. With over 3 decades advising 7, 8, and even 9-figure millionaires, and now joining that elite group, I'm in a unique position to help you make the best financial choices so you can create a secure financial future and retirement you love. This is the Wealth Inside and Out podcast. I encourage you to go and take our financial health checkup. You can go to themillionaireinsider.com/FHC. The financial health checkup is just like a medical health checkup. You go to the doctor, you typically get an annual exam or an exam every 2 years to see that everything's okay. But most people don't realize that when it comes to your finances, the same thing is true. And this checkup is going to give you insight on what you're doing right, your gaps, and what you need to do to make sure you don't have problems in the future. So again, themillionaireinsider.com/FHC. Today's free resource is our millionaire mindset, and it clearly goes along with becoming a DecaMillionaire because probably the most important thing if you want to become a millionaire or a multimillionaire or a DecaMillionaire or even a centimillionaire is you got to learn how to think like a millionaire. Millionaire mindset is all about that. You can go to themillionaireinsider.com/SMMG. Again, themillionaireinsider.com/SMMG. The insight I share in this resource is literally 35 years of research, and it dials in what you need to do so you can at least get in the mindset of accumulating the wealth you desire. So again, themillionaireinsider.com/SMMG. For today's show notes, you can go to themillionaireinsider.com/66. All materials and intellectual property are copywritten by themillionaireseries.com. This information is for educational purposes only. It is not intended to replace any or specialist or to provide any investment, financial, tax, retirement, planning, or healthcare advice. By accessing this material, you agree to hold millionaireseries.com and its affiliates harmless for results achieved or not achieved. Today, we're diving into part 2, the DecaMillionaire Journey. As I mentioned, it may seem really difficult, if not impossible, and I get it. Some of the insight you're going to learn are going to be game-changing. Let's recap before we dive into part 2. In part 1, we dove into the inner game, specifically mindset and emotions. It's really critical that you dial that in because in a lot of ways, I think that's probably even more important than what we're dialing into today, although both are critical, especially when you combine them together. So number 3, I literally thought once I realized that some people had money and others didn't. This was when I was in high school. Like it really dawned on me, like there are people that have serious money. And here we were. I mean, we were just basically blue collar, working class. My father, who had an 8th grade education, went on to being a very successful plumber and owning real estate. Like, we didn't have a lot of money. I had to work to be able to have new clothes for school. And so, I mean, it was a tough life. And when all of a sudden I started meeting these millionaires who would come into the restaurant where I worked and tell me about all their trips and oh, their life just looks so great. I was like, oh my God, that's what's missing from my life is money, right? And fast forward now, 40 years later, and what I will tell you is the secret is fulfilled and wealthy. And I personally think fulfilled is the most important thing. What does it look like to live a fulfilled life? Now, for most people, unless you're going to move to some commune or some place where money doesn't matter, right? You've got to have money to be able to afford the lifestyle. So fulfilled, meaning what it really looks like, and then also having the money to do what you want. Now, I'm just going to give you a little bit of insight of what fulfilled looks like for me because it has changed. Before I had money, it's like, oh, I just couldn't wait until I had the houses and the cars and the trips. And oh, I can remember I had a client whose parents had lived between 3 homes. And I remember at the time going, oh my, I can't even imagine. And now the fact that I've got that and I'm more content in just staying at my house, ultimately what's going to be our house that we're trying to build if we ever get it done. But just being able to be in my routine. I mean, it's just so interesting how that changes. It's kind of like the grass is always greener when you don't have it. And I'm not saying it's not great to have 3 homes and to have one in the mountains, one on the beach, and one in the desert. It's awesome. But for me, fulfilled, waking up without an alarm clock. Every morning, pretty much every morning, I do 1 hour of yoga. I then walk 1 mile with my dogs and my husband. I then eat breakfast casually, and then I go to my office. I am working too much. I am very much acknowledging that. I've got too much on my plate. And part of it is that from a perspective of being an advisor, is that I get to work on some really awesome cases because of my level of expertise. And some of them are just so fun. As long as it's fun, I'm going to continue doing it. And if at some time it becomes not fun, then I'm going to look at doing something differently. I am going to create my program on either money mastery or winning with money, something along those lines at some point, so that I can actually provide my knowledge to a much broader base. Those are the things that really bring me joy. I weight train 3 times a week. I'm stronger than I've ever been. I do 10,000 steps like almost every day. Then prioritizing friendships. Like I'm having happy hour tonight with one of my dear friends, dinner with my sister, date night with my husband, time with my kids. Almost every week we have dinner with our kids. So I just really make that a priority. And I just do know that living fulfilled for me is just the simple things. Like when I go for a walk, I pick this jasmine flower and oh my gosh, all I have to do is smell that flower and I feel like in a good mood. And I think, gosh, isn't it funny that when I didn't have money, I'm thinking all the money's going to change everything. And then it's a simple jasmine flower that really makes my day. When you get really clear on what it means to be fulfilled, it's a lot easier to accumulate the money. The other thing I will just say is that I am knowledgeable and what I'm really good at is connecting the dots. I am probably not the most technical advisor from a standpoint, but I'm more practical. Like I can get a situation and I can look at, the facts, what needs to be done, and then tie it into the real world. And so I'm really good at connecting those dots. So that's been one thing that's been priceless. But I think the other thing that's really has had such an impact and why I've been able to be so successful is the fact that I really, truly care about the people I serve, and they know it. I mean, it's amazing how many of my clients are like, I love you, Annette. I'm like, I love you too. And it's just, I really do care about them. And in fact, the reason I haven't retired is because a lot of them, one of them actually started crying in my office when I said, I'm going to start an online business. This was 17 years ago. She goes, you can't leave me. And I'm like, okay, I will never leave you. The reality of it is that I really, truly, genuinely care. I mean, like from the bottom of my heart. And I now have literally been able to see full circle where I've worked with the clients for 35 years and now they're no longer here. And now I see the impact it's making on their kids' lives. And I'll tell you, there is nothing like it. It's just, oh my God, you can't put a price tag on it. And that, if you can get to that point where you really find something that you're that passionate about, it changes everything. Getting emotional here. Number 4, numbers. You got to know numbers, some simple numbers. The first thing you got to do is you got to keep your expenses under control. And I look at so many people who are so overspending. They spend too much money on outside services. They spend too much money doing a lot of things. And I'm just going to give you an example because I was thinking like one day, it was really interesting. We have always had a housekeeper that comes every other week. And the reason I did that is because I just saw a lot of my clients doing that. And then what ended up happening is my kids became a little bit older. And I can remember my son said, I said, you need to go fold your laundry. And he said, well, that's Bab's job. Now, Babs was our nanny, and we did have the luxury of having a nanny. I'm like, wait a minute, what do you mean it's Bab's job? No, that's your job. And then I'm like, Babs, this is not your job. I better not get you doing it. They need to be doing it. That was when I'm like, no, we're not getting a housekeeper every week because all they're going to do is not do what they need to be doing, which is their responsibility. So that was priceless. But it also, I was thinking about it the other day. I'm like, maybe we should have our housekeeper come every week. And now it's not as bad, but it's a lot easier now. But we still do. My son is still living at home. He's going to probably be moving out in August, so that'll make it easier. What I looked at is I think, okay, let's just say you pay your housekeeper $200 every time she comes. All right, so per month, that's $400 times 12, that's $4,800. If you have them coming every week, double that. That's $10,000 a year. So right there, you save $5,200. So I want you to be thinking about those things. Same thing with lawn. Now, we've always had our lawn guy come every single week. And when we decided we're going to get a new landscape guy, he's like, okay, so I'll be coming every other week. I'm like, what? And he goes, well, do you really need it every week? I'm like, God, how much money would I have saved over the last literally, I've owned a home now for, like 35 years, different homes. I'm like, oh, I never thought about that one. That is the power. You save it. And so let's just say you're paying $200 a month. Well, now you're paying $100 a month. I mean, right there, you save money. So again, you've got to get that dialed in. And I think a lot of times people have a tendency of spending too much money early on. My comment is you've got to keep your numbers under control. That's how you're able to amass enough money that you can invest and make money on it. I know there's a balance, and I know that it's like what you do and what you don't do. And there's clearly something to be said about having support and not doing it all yourself. I mean, fortunately, I have a husband who, he manages the dishwasher. He manages all the grocery shopping. He manages all of the laundry. It's just so interesting. And it's like he's got his way of doing it. And I'm like, I just have to remind myself that he does things his way. I do things mine. But hey, God bless him. And thank you so much, because it just allows me to spend my time on other things. But you've got to keep those expenses under control. And then the next thing you have to do is set your goal. Now, I'm just going to give you my brief math that is so simple. But basically, my first goal was just to become a millionaire. And I hit that goal when I was in my early 30s. And I'm like, wow, I'm a millionaire. And as I mentioned before, nothing's really changed. I thought, well, maybe it's another million. And it just kept going up and up and up until I finally realized that nothing's going to change until I really dial in my emotions and I really dial in that inner game on a much higher level. And I think that's when I really started really becoming tuned into the worth barometer and how important it is, because there's so many of us that have been so successful financially and even in our lives that are such overachievers. There's a lot to be said about us working through being enough. I mean, everyone's got that issue. I mean, rarely do you find anyone that doesn't, but I think we've got it even more, like really proving ourselves. And I know that from my upbringing, I've had to really need to prove that, I'm smarter, that I'm smart enough, that I'm whatever enough. And it's just such a self-defeating illness. So if have issues with that, I encourage you to go listen to the Worth Barometer at themillionaireinsider.com/3. Now, I'm going to be doing a special training on 3 insights to elevate your worth barometer. So stay tuned. That's going to be coming up. So once I became a millionaire, I'm like, okay, I just basically set my buckets. And I said, I think 4 million would be great. So I wanted 1 million in stock, 1 million in bonds and cash, fixed income and cash, 1 million in real estate, and 1 million in retirement. So I was like, okay, so those were my buckets. And those were just what I started accumulating. I got to that. Well, do the math. You get to that and then they appreciate. Then you say, okay, now you want a $10 million net worth. All right, then you just need 2.5 million. And how do you do it? I started investing $25 a month 35 years ago. And it was that discipline. I had no money, none. Like I was wondering how I was going to pay my grocery bill. I did not have any money. I didn't come from money. I had no money. And so that is what I started focusing in on. But that discipline is why I have discipline today. And so the 2.5 million, it literally added up times 4, it's 10 million. And then you say, okay, now I've got 2.5 million in real estate and it does what it did over the last couple of years. Now it's worth 5 million. That's how you become a DecaMillionaire. So let's recap. 1, you got to learn how to think like a millionaire. And thinking like a millionaire is just getting a little different perspective. I would say one thing we're really good at is seeing the big picture. And one thing we're really good at is connecting the dots. The downside of that, my friends, is what I experienced at the conference, is that I'm already at the end. I'm already here. I am. Everyone else is still here. That is so dangerous. And it's just cringeworthy because I just think I came across as so insensitive, and that's so not who I am. And then you got to own up. You got to own up, like getting into your mindset and emotions. You got to own up. Okay, I screwed up. All right, I'm not perfect. See, it's like I have such a perfectionism of like, oh, I got to be perfect. Well, no one's perfect. And part of it is, I think it's kind of good when you're not perfect, because then you see the people that really judge you if you're not. I'm like, okay, if you think I'm perfect, I'm not. So just get over that. So that's number 2. And then number 3 is living fulfilled and wealthy. Such an important topic. If you can live fulfilled, you got it made. Because we live in a civilized country where the bartering is money, you got to have some money. Now, do you have to have 10 million? No, but I will say that 10 million does give you peace of mind and a sense of choice and freedom that you don't get when you don't have money. So, why not go for 10 million? I mean, there needs to be more women in the $10 million category. And then number 4, you got to know your numbers. You got to keep your expenses under control. And then you got to get really clear on that goal and just create buckets. I mean, even if your goal, let's say your goal is not 10 million, maybe it's not 4 million, maybe it is 1 million. Then you're going to focus in on 250,000 in each bucket. You got this. It's not that hard. All right, you guys, I hope you make it great. If you love the content of this podcast, please follow and subscribe to our channel so you get notified of episodes, and also give us a 5-star review and share a comment. We really appreciate it. Congratulations on taking another step to create a financially free life you love. If you're not sure about your financial future, or that it's in order, or you are ready to stop worrying about money, or possibly the fear of becoming a bag lady, ending up broke in retirement, or you simply are ready to know your financial house is in order so that you can have a bright financial future, please go to themillionaireinsider.com/NSF. And that doesn't stand for non-sufficient funds. It stands for next step finance. It's the next best step of what you need to do so you can avoid an NSF notice in your future. Again, themillionaireinsider.com/NSF. The number of women who were not broke or poor while working or married is staggering. The entire mission of the Wealth Inside and Out podcast is to ensure you have the information for you, your family, your friends, anyone who's willing to listen to it and apply it so that you can create a financially free life you love. Again, themillionaireinsider.com/NSF. Until our next episode, take one action that will help you create a financially free life you love. I'm Annette Ba'u, your host. All international copyrights are reserved. Bye for now.